progress, even if there's areas you have to change or things have to shift. All right, so last step, step 3. Now, here's where the rubber really meets the road. It's how you do the things that you plan to do. So I just want to come back to this. You have a plan. You have a plan. You have action steps listed. You have a way of tracking what you're going to do. And you have some good reminders about remembering your aspirations. But all of that doesn't mean squat if you don't actually do any of the things. And for those of us who love planning, I put myself in that box. When we love planning, I am the master of writing plans that I don't use. Seriously, it's a problem. I have written so many curriculum maps that I then go teach without them, and I look back at them months later and say, oh, that was pretty good. I should have used it. So if you're one of those people, this is especially for you. But even if you're not one of those people, these are the strategies that are actually going to help you do the thing that you want to do and follow that plan that you just made. And I want to remind you that a good plan executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. It's from General Patton. I'm not usually a fan of military quotes, but I think it's really important to remember that it's not about perfection. Good enough is good enough. And often good enough is better than never done. So there are 5 strategies for doing the things, for following through in your plan that I want to share with you today. Please, please, please do not try and do all of these. Don't. It'll make you insane. Instead, as I go through them, pick the ones that actually make the most sense for you and whatever intention you're working towards. So the first one is project sheets. Let's talk about that. Basically, it's that action plan you made. You actually make a little sheet. You could put it on a piece of paper. You could put it on a computer document. I've used Evernote. I've stored it in Evernote. I know people who have stored them in Google Docs. Any form is fine. But you basically put your goal. And your goal could be, my lose 10 pounds example, but my goal could also be to be more patient. And then I'm going to add on my more clear intentions, right? So I'm going to say, I want to make eye contact more often when I'm upset. And I want to use a mantra to calm myself down when I start to lose my temper. These would be my goals. Then the action steps, of course, the action steps you listed, but it's also space for notes, ideas, and links. And so project sheets are really great for things where you're collecting ideas or collecting new information about. So I will say another example is if I was finishing up my house and I named that and gotten clear about what that meant, and that meant redoing the back deck, for example, as a first step, then my goal would be to take up all the boards in the back deck and replace them with new lumber. And I'd have action steps for that. But then in the notes section, I could put links to different cost comparisons of the wood, or different places to buy it, or different options for what kind of wood to get. So it's a great place to store information for bigger projects. The next strategy is setting routines. And I think this is really important. Cues are key. So here's what that means. We all have routines. A good routine, you don't even know you have it. And a routine that you're working on, you're hyper aware that you have it. It's a very interesting contradiction. So when we all have routines, some of mine, for example, are I brush my teeth before I go to bed. I have dinner at 5:30 in the evening because that's when we eat with the kids. And at this point, when I haven't been with my children for dinner at 5:30, I get really hungry, even if I'm eating with normal grownups at 7. So again, just this idea that we have routines, we don't even notice them until they're not there. I also have a routine of having oatmeal in the morning. I usually have oatmeal in the winter. I have it hot. And in the summer, I have the refrigerator oatmeal. I'm just used to it. So these are just some of the routines that I have. And what's really important is the cues. So you already have routines. One of the best ways to set up a new routine or add something to your routine is to actually use a cue that already exists. So for example, you could say, okay, I want to make sure that I write my gratitude journal. For example, I want to show more gratitude in the world. So you do it first thing in the morning. You do it, you get out of bed, and you write your gratitude journal before you actually get up for the day. Or you can do something right before bed. Or you could do it on the way to work. You also can set phone alarms. So I've done that where I want to have something done at a specific time. So I just set an alarm on my phone, and that works pretty well. But you need a cue. So if you tell yourself, I am going to make sure to use, I'm going to make sure to work out every day, but you don't know when that is, and you don't have a cue to make sure you do it, it's probably not going to happen. So you need to have some kind of cue. This strategy is really helpful if you are looking at building a new routine. So if you're looking at doing something consistently like working out, or you're looking at doing something consistently like showing gratitude. This strategy is not as great for something that's more intermittent. So for example, if I'm working on using my patience mantra when I lose my temper, it's not so much a routine. It's really more of the cue is that I get angry, but I don't know when that's going to happen. So it's not really a routine, although I can use this idea of cues. So again, that's the setting routines. It's for something you are doing routinely on a daily basis or weekly basis. And so you can use a routine that you already have to cue you to do the new thing you want to do. The next strategy is accountability. I think the strategy is so huge. About 70% of people benefit from some kind of accountability. And there's a great book by Gretchen Rubin that she's working on called The Four Tendencies, and she talks about the different types of people there are. And there's some people that use more internal accountability. So they make a promise to themselves to do something, and then they push forward because they feel like they owe it to themselves. There's other people that may not keep a promise to themselves, but they will to somebody else. And so that's a different kind of style. That's what most people fall into one of those categories. There are people that are more rebels, and if somebody else expects them to do something or they say they're going to do something, they almost have a natural tendency to then resist that. So again, think about your own personal style and think about what kind of accountability makes the most sense for you. So for example, there's some great ways to use accountability with other people. So you could tell somebody the what and the why, maybe a friend or a spouse tell somebody what you're doing and why you're doing it. It's great to chat with friends about. I find that it doesn't have to be this big announcement about what I'm doing. Usually when I do hang out with friends or even when I'm chatting with my husband in the evenings, just saying like, I've been thinking about this thing. I want to kind of work on this thing. And that's enough to make me feel like, okay, I've put it out into the world. I've told somebody else I want to live up to it. You can also post on social media. Plenty of people do that. You can book an appointment. So if you're doing something, the workout example is great for this. You book an appointment with an actual trainer. Or if you are working on finishing something in the house, you make an appointment with a contractor. Even if the appointment's 3 months away, you basically set it up so that somebody else is counting on you to be ready to take action. You can also get a buddy. It's great to work on this with somebody else. I've done this with folks. It's great to have different intentions, right? So if I'm working on being more patient and then I have a friend who's working on setting clearer boundaries for their kids, we have different intentions and different goals, but we're both still working on them and we're talking about it as parents. So having a buddy is great for this. So again, accountability is great if you have something you're doing that other people can help you with, or that you think that your own internal motivation won't be quite enough. Accountability is not great for something that you're working on that feels a little bit too personal, or if you're somebody who is less likely to do it if somebody else is holding you accountable. So those are things to think about with this strategy. The next one is sacred time. This is something I talk about a lot in various workshops. So sacred time is literally just a protected block of time in which you focus on one activity or relationship that you find important. So it's basically blocking out time in your schedule, usually once a week or once a month, for something, and you treat it as if it's sacred. And by here, sacred doesn't mean religious. It means untouchable. It means it's an appointment you keep no matter what. It's not a time for multitasking. It's not a time that can be moved around. It's not something you can put off till tomorrow. It's set by time. So the classic example I use is that Thursday afternoons are my sacred time with my son. I pick him up from school and we do something, just the two of us, usually for about an hour and a half. And he's come to rely on it. I've come to rely on it. It's a really, really important part of our routine. And it's something that actually does help me be patient with my kids, because I know I'm going to get that time one-on-one with them. If they're making me crazy in other ways, I can kind of let it go, knowing that we'll have a good interaction another time. You can also set up sacred time for doing things for your self-care, right? It could be for working out. It could be for making meals. Another thing I think is important is thinking about professional life. We don't talk about this enough, but I, as a teacher, did not control a lot of my schedule, but I did know what my schedule was going to look like for the most part. And I had certain blocks of time that were periods that I didn't teach, that I knew I wasn't going to have to sub another class, and I knew I wasn't going to have a meeting. And I tried to keep those certain blocks. I always tried to keep, when I had a morning block where I wasn't teaching, I dedicated that to long-term planning. So it meant even if my lesson for that day wasn't totally set, or even if I had a bunch of papers to grade, I always planned for my larger units during that morning time, because A, I was fresher and my brain worked better, and B, if I didn't make time, sacred time for that kind of planning, it wasn't going to happen. So those are the strategies for doing. So that's the strategies for sacred time, is you literally pick a block of time in your schedule and say, this is protected. This is a time I'm going to do this thing. I recommend not having more than one a week. It's not something you do every day. So again, if you're looking to try to have an action step every day towards your intention, use the routine, use the cues. If you're looking to make time for something once a week or once a month, sacred time is a great tool. And the last strategy I want to share is the recurring to-do list. I have a whole nother workshop on this, so I'm going to try not to go into too much detail, and I will share the link to the recurring to-do list strategy seminar in the follow-up email to this workshop. But basically what it means is you make a to-do list with your routine stuff so that you don't have to think about it anymore. So stuff that you always do on Monday, you write on Monday. So if you always do on Saturday, you write on Saturday. So mine, for example, on Sunday, I have meal prep. On Wednesday, I have curriculum planning for my community college class. On Thursday, I have my sacred time with my son. Like, there's just certain things that happen every week. Getting them on a to-do list that I just have and look at every week and know what has to happen is very helpful. This was also helpful for teaching. I had sort of a routine of teaching where I just said Monday I always did these things and Tuesday I always did these things. I called parents on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I did attendance write-ups on certain days. So it's really helpful, again, in professional life, personal life, parenting life, all those things. When you are trying to add a new thing, you can put it on your recurring to-do list. You can put it on every day. So for a while, when I wanted to call more parents, I added, instead of just doing Tuesdays, I did Tuesday, Thursdays. Also, when I wanted to, I went through a phase where I was trying to cut out more sugar. So I put on my to-do list brew tea, because if I drank tea at night, I had less sugar craving, and I would just put on every day. So I got to have tea, not eat sugar, and then I got to cross it off my to-do list, which was a little kick. So you can use it a variety of ways, but essentially you set it up and say, okay, what are the action steps I want to take, and what days are they going to happen on a routine basis? All right, so that was a lot, but basically there's these 5 strategies for doing. So you've got your action plan, you've got your intention that you're working towards, you've got some action steps for it. I want you to take a moment now, choose one of these strategies that you're going to use to help you do those action steps that you wrote down. I'll give you a moment for that. All right, so once you've chosen one of these strategies, not 2, 1, you're ready to think about, okay, how am I going to move forward? And I will say the worksheet that goes with this workshop that I've emailed out to you, and we'll email out again with the replay, use that because it describes these in more detail. So if you feel like you missed something or you're not sure, it's great to go back and look at that. All right, so you have your plan, you have your action steps, you have your strategy for actually doing the thing, and please don't forget your aspirations and compassion for yourself. So gentle awareness, keep that gentle kindness for yourself, but also remember that what you're doing with your intentions is not just about being more fit or being a better parent. It's about something bigger. It's about this idea of being a better person in some way, or being a more whole person in some way. I like to think fundamentally that when I can be the best person I can, when I can work a little bit on myself to be the best person I can be, I'm also putting something out into the world that's beneficial. And I've also learned that when I'm in a place where I feel like I have control over who I am and how I'm growing, I'm much better at making a difference for others. And I don't just mean in a way that's showing kindness to others, although I care about that, obviously. I mean things like dismantling the patriarchy. I mean things like making a difference in the world and confronting hate and stereotypes and all kinds of the problems we face in the world. I can face those better, and I can face the difficult news and difficult things happen in the world much better when I feel in control of the smaller things in my life and my own intentions. So I think this is not just about, losing 10 pounds or being a nicer mom. It's about something bigger. It's about being my best self in the world and also having an impact on the world and having that impact be positive. So with that in mind, I would like you to remember that it's failure that gives you the proper perspective on success. Most people, when we have lofty intentions, we don't achieve them the first time. We may actually never achieve them. We just move closer to them. I want you to embrace that idea that you're always moving closer to them, even when it feels like you're taking steps back. And I want you to embrace the idea that what feels like failure is often just a learning opportunity. And it sounds cheesy, but it's absolutely true. All right, so thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking time with me today. There's more resources at createbalanceDLife.com, so I encourage you to check those out. I also, in the worksheet I sent out, there are some links to more detailed tools. So for example, Sacred Time Recurring To-Do List, I have much more detail about those tools, and there's links to that in your worksheet. So I really appreciate you taking time with me today. I'm just trying to go back to the screen. There we go. Thanks so much for your time. And I hope that you picked 2 intentions that mean something to you, that have deep value to you, and you now have some steps to go forward and make those intentions part of your reality, to make those intentions part of your daily life. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.